Hello and welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing for Wednesday, the 23rd of November. Today, to discuss all the latest Celtic news, I'm joined by TCW writer Tony Haggerty, who is live from Australia. And I believe that's not your bedroom, Tony, that is a stadium you're live from.
This is the Combank Stadium in Parramatta, which is about an hour and a bit away from where I was staying in George Street, Sydney. And it's currently 3-1 to Everton just now, but another wonderful arena. And if you hear noise, that's what's happening. See that glass, but that's press box looks down. It's kind of panoramic view of the stadium. It's cracking. It's another wonderful venue. Currently 3-1 to Everton against Western Sydney Wanderers. The Sydney Cup finishes today, and I was told to just go on a watching brief and enjoy it, and just finish what you started, basically, in a mastermind style. I've started, so I'll finish.
Were you impressed kind of what you'd seen of the match so far?
Yeah, everything I've looked really good, but Sydney Wanderers have had their moments, scored an equaliser, also hit them on the side of the bar and could have gone ahead, so it's strange to actually sit and watch a match even without worrying about doing stuff. It's kind of a weird feeling, and I don't like it. Although, to be fair, I've just sent you a diary piece, haven't I? So I was kind of doing stuff as you do. You're never not working.
Still just ticking over.
Correct. The grey matter of the brain, you can probably hear it ticking from where you are, So there you
go. So, switching gears, obviously, to Celtic-related news, as you can see from the title of this video, we're going to be discussing recent comments from Ange Postecoglou, just talking about the transfers. These were comments that came out last night. So just before we get into that, if I can just draw the viewers' attention to the ticker down below. We've currently got the Black Friday offer going. It's £1 for 6 months of full access to the website. That includes everything from podcasts like this, features, interviews, tactics, scouting, etc. So if you're not already subscribed, get yourself involved, because that's a deal we're currently running for Black Friday. So, Tony, we will come to, obviously, Andrew's comments from yesterday. He was kind of asked about transfer business in general, and he went into some specific detail. I'll quickly just list off a couple of his quotes to add sort of context. So he was asked whether or not he gets excited by this period of the transfer window and the prospect of potential new signings coming in. So Andrew replied, "I'm always happy, I'm always excited. There's always something that needs to be done. It's not just about bringing in new players for the sake of it. It has to be players we feel can take us to the next level, which is what we've done so far." And he was also sort of prompted about whether or not there was signings already lined up. Obviously, the club's been linked with Yuki Kobayashi and Vissel Kobe. And Ange sort of teased the fans, saying, "It's fair to say there's a couple lined up. It's how we've done things and how I believe we need to be. It's how I'm built. I don't like rushing in last minute. It's not always the case, but we did it with Matt O'Reilly in 3 days last year because we've seen an opportunity and moved really quickly." Now, Tony, listen to that. What's your sort of just general thoughts on those comments?
Well, standing right next to him when he said those questions, I asked the excited one, and he shot that kind of smile, and then one of the other guys asked him about, is it fair to say there's a couple coming in? And he just kind of looked at him and he laughed and he went, "Yeah, it's fair to say that, yeah," and it was just he was teasing us. But I think, like everything else, we alluded to it yesterday, I spoke about it, that Celtic are acting like a big club, Aidan, and they're getting all their ducks in a row and they are planning ahead. So this is not something that has been sprung on the January window. I think Celtic have done their due diligence on a couple of targets, Kobayashi being the obvious one. Now speculating as to other potential departures or someone coming in to fill in any kind of gaps. The Josip Juranovic still hangs in the air, doesn't it, with a question mark, all depending on the World Cup and if offers come in for him. And I got the feeling that even if offers came in for the likes of Jota and O'Reilly, as I said yesterday, Ange wouldn't want to part company with those guys right now. So as for other positions, and then again, is Ange Postecoglou seeing what a lot of fans are seeing, that is he going to target a striker? Does he think the two strikers we've got are good enough? That's also speculation and conjecture, but I think he's on the ball and all over it regarding signings coming in, and I think there'll be at least a couple, possibly more. But again, the way he works, I think with the likes of Matt O'Reilly, he was presented with an opportunity very late on but I can only assume that he knew all about Matt O'Reilly because he acted so quickly, didn't he, after the Riley McGree episode, which wasn't allowed to linger. That happened, and then within a day, I think Celtic had Matt O'Reilly in the bag, and everybody was kind of like, okay, that's fine. And having watched Matt O'Reilly, I think they believe that they've got the better deal out of that one.
Yeah, I think in terms of O'Reilly, it was made clear that the club had been scouting him for a wee while, even potentially before Ange maybe even came in. So they had the information there. I'm sure the manager looked at him a few times to decide what was going to happen. And it does show you that as much as he's very keen to say that most of the work's been done, if another Matt O'Reilly-esque opportunity sort of appeared, the club are quite happy to move quickly on it.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to have that sort of balance. You don't want to be losing everything to the last minute. What was that been another goal, Tony?
Could be another goal. It's looking like, yeah, it's another goal for Everton. I can just see the screen, the top left. Yeah, looks like a goal. That would be 4-1 to Everton. But no, but I also took from his comments, Aidan, and I could be wrong in this, but it might well be that there's a couple of deals already been done.
Yeah, that was the impression I got.
What like they did last year when they brought in I think they announced the 3 Japanese guys, even before the window had officially opened, didn't they?
Yeah, Haggerty, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it could be something like that. There might be the couple in the pipeline that he's talking about, that those deals are done, and it might be that just prior to the window opening, they will announce them. As to who the other one is, Kobayashi, I think it's one of those football secrets, isn't it? Or not a secret, an open secret. So I think it's safe to say that could be over the line, but until you're told, then so be it. And then possibly another. But Ange's quite, he's a good poker player that way, in terms of letting you know information about players. So and I think, like all big clubs, that's the way you've got to operate, so that nobody knows. I think the Kobayashi one came out from the Japanese end, didn't it? I believe Japanese media were the first to be on that, because obviously somebody has tipped a wink to someone in the Far East to let them know. But in general, most of Celtic transfers, you hear about them, and then it's only a short period of time before they're done, aren't they?
Yeah, that is usually the case. Probably the exception being when Adaguchi and Aidan Macdonald signed last year. I think the first links were October or so.
Yeah.
And then there was more and more links sort of progressing. And then I think about a week or so before it was basically confirmed they were going to sign. We just didn't know when in January. And then you got that brilliant surprise in Hogmanay when you're maybe getting ready for your night out or whatever, and you've seen 3 players bouncing in. This is brilliant. Celtic will never did transfer business like this in recent years anyway. So,
yes.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's been a slightly similar pattern in that when the link emerged for Kobayashi, I think it was October, about last month or so. So it's fallen around about the same time frame. So I'll be interested to see if between now and maybe when the football comes back, even on the 17th of December, if that link's progressed again.
And I also think that Ange Postecoglou knows that part of the world. He knows the media, he knows the market, doesn't he? So he knows if he's going for a player, he probably accepts that it's not going to stay a secret. Because, I mean, lots of clubs deal with transfer speculation in different ways, but he's probably comfortable with the fact that it's been leaked over there as opposed to, over here. If you get what I mean, that makes kind of sense, because it's something he's had experience of working in. And working with people, so maybe it's come from reliable and trusted sources that he just refuses to shoot down or say anything any more about it.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm sure the sort of added interest on Ange's transfer movements in the Japanese market, there's more sort of eyes on that than ever before. Whereas with the Kyogo one came in relatively under the radar, you didn't really hear anything, nobody was really expecting it. From a Japanese side of things, if I remember rightly, their media, it kind of just came out of nowhere because it was during the season. Obviously, after that, there was a lot of there was a lot of interest, which is probably why it got leaked so early that Maida, etc., was coming in, and it's the same this case. So yeah, I'm sure the manager would have expected that. I don't think he's really that bothered as long as the player definitely comes in January. But obviously, just touching on the potential transfer business, it looks like a centre back is whether it's Kobayashi or somebody else in general. That looks like a position the club are targeting. We touched on yesterday talking about the striker aspect of whether or not the manager would bring one in, what would be the sort of skill set he was looking for. I think we sort of agreed that ideally it'd be somebody that is a first choice who can come in and challenge Kyogo or Yakimakis. And if the manager doesn't think he can get that, it's probably likely he'd maybe wait till the summer the way we were discussing it to bring in another striker. I was just wondering, Tony, is there another position on the pitch that you think, or a couple of positions that you think maybe need a wee bit of depth?
I still say we're shy of a midfield enforcer, a real kind of a ball playing midfield enforcer, if you want to call him that. I think we're well stocked for tremendous technically gifted footballers in the midfield, Patati and O'Reilly, and we've got Callum McGregor coming back. But I'd still like a ball winning midfielder. I thought Oliver Abelgard was going to be that guy, that kind of holding anchor role, and lots of height, and his passing stats and all that bore out the fact that he fitted the bill and he looked the part, but he's just not been able to force his way into that team and get as many game minutes as I think a lot of Celtic supporters thought. So we'll just wait and see. I'm of the opinion you can never get enough good players in your team, Aidan, and you shoehorn them in, don't you? You find a way or a system that suits them, and with Ange rotating, then it's always good to have good players in your squad. I mean, you could turn around and say, yeah, we need this, that, and the next thing. The manager knows what he needs, doesn't he? If Juranovic goes, then you'll need a new right back, won't you? Bottom line, that's the thing. But I still midfield enforcer, kind of dominant midfielder, striker. I'm not fussed if we don't sign a striker. If we do, great. But I don't think it's in my mind. I don't see it being an immediate priority. But lots of fans see it differently and say we're being negligent with a lot of chances, and we need to get somebody who's far more prolific than Kyogo and Giakoumakis. But these guys cost a lot of money too, and as you say, I don't know if they'll find that person in the January window, because if they do, it's possibly a stopgap, isn't it? I'd rather they did their due diligence and intelligently and found someone who'll fit the bill and maybe get them in the summer, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's all exciting, isn't it? To be fair, the manager said himself, he gets exciting. So they're clearly working on things. There's things on the boil, and just waiting to come, simmering away. And I think just waiting to come to the boil. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I completely agree, Tony. And it's probably the case that the only way you would get that sort of first choice striker in is if one of the other two was maybe to leave, or you sold somebody for quite a lot of money that allowed you to open the funds to go and spend, as you said, a bit more, which is always striking a balance. You don't want to be losing key players in January either.
No.
Just while we're talking about squad depth, squad recruitment, it's been a post today a couple of times in the comments there. I did a piece yesterday. It was part of the newsletter. It's up on part of yesterday's newsletter, but up on the site today, about where Celtic need to strengthen in January, and I touched on the centre back aspect, and there's a few more positions I mentioned as well. So if anybody's interested in kind of exploring this conversation a bit further, that's in the comments, which take you to the site and you'll be able to see it. In that piece, I did mention about the potential for maybe another number 8 coming in, Tony.
Yep.
Obviously, I appreciate there is a lot of depth in that position. When everybody's fit, obviously Callum McGregor's back in the 6, he can also play a bit forward. But, Matt O'Reilly's there, Rio Hitati's there, David Turnbull, Aaron Moy. But I was sort of making the point that since Tom Roderick left, I don't think we've replaced that sort of playmaker style of number 8. And maybe that's something that's slightly missing from the midfield, particularly in the case of when Matt O'Reilly's having to move back. So obviously you've got Hitati, who can really do a bit of everything and does most of it pretty well. But maybe on that other side, Turnbull's still developing into that role, because he is still a young player. I think he's only 23 or so. And then Moy, who I think is probably did a lot better than maybe people would expect him, but he is getting on a bit. He's coming to the end of his 8 years. Still got plenty of years of football in him, but that way of being able to run about and press at a high rate, you can kind of see that he's maybe not got that anymore. So do you think that's maybe a position they could look at either January or the summer?
Well, you can either look at it two ways. You either sign someone to fill the Callum McGregor role and let McGregor go further forward, or you sign, as you say, a number 8, a creative type, to replace the dazzle and the feet that left you and Tom Roderick going. So I think it's a toss-up between what the manager's thinking on that front, because you have a plethora of midfielders, but you maybe need one in that position, in either the 8 or the 6, depending on what way he's thinking. I would say the 6, to be fair. And also, if you get that player, then that allows because Callum's great moving further forward. It's also good in the 6, But I think you've stifled Matt O'Reilly's creativity by moving him back. And I'm not saying that he's been poor since he's gone into that role. He's been terrific. But I think if you move a player back and you stifle that, but Matt O'Reilly's got a lot to offer going forward. So that's why I'm inclined to think if you get a 6 in, you can play the likes of McGregor further forward, O'Reilly further forward. Hatate's got a bit of everything. Pair him that with Moy and Turnbull. All of a sudden your midfield's looking pretty healthy. So I'd be inclined to go with a 6, but I wouldn't rule out him signing another 8. That's fair enough. And talking of signings, I put a TikTok on Aidan earlier, and I met a big, let's say, a cuddly toy kangaroo. I just asked it if it could play left centre back. You know what I mean? So I didn't get any answer. Still waiting on that answer. I was down at Paddy's Market, which is the equivalent to Glasgow Barrowlands. But if you're on the Celtic with TikTok and you follow that, you'll see it. Still waiting on an answer, Aidan, but doing my scouting bit for the club if I can.
Try to get a scouting fee, Tony. Quite right. Just when we were mentioning Aidan Moy there, obviously he was in action last night for Australia against France.
Yeah.
You said you seen a good chunk of the game, Tony. I managed to catch a bit of it as well. From what I've seen, Aidan Moy started okay. He did fade a bit. Obviously, given his age, given the heat, and the sort of you're playing against the reigning world champions. It did end 4-1 to France, but Australia had opportunities, and obviously they started the game really well with that opening goal. Were you impressed with the Socceroos from what you've seen, and were you impressed with Aidan Moy?
Played a brilliant start, to be fair to them, scored a wonderful goal and were settling right into the game when they conceded equaliser. But you're playing the world champions and you expect that, and then within not too long of you conceding equaliser, they went 2-1 down and it rocked them a wee bit, but Jackson Irvine hit the post with a header and he was really unlucky. It could have made it 2 each, but I mean they fought well, but I guess it was a question of class telling in the end. The world champions have got Mbappe and they've got Olivier Giroud, who replaced Benzema. Not a bad replacement, when you're calling on guys like that. And I think he scored 2 goals to draw level with Thierry Henry as the leading French goal scorer for the national team. So that tells you all the quality you need to know. But the Socceroos gave a right good fist of it. And as for Moy, I was impressed with Moy at the start. He was kind of dictating a lot. But again, which I've noticed as well, and sometimes with Celtic, he faded, as the game wore on, like a lot of his teammates. He wasn't alone in that, but, they certainly gave France a fright right at the start and were good value for the lead up until the French pulled it back. And once France scored, I think the writing was on the wall. But, they played well enough, and I like to look at Moy for a time. But again, it was that the 90 minutes thing. He gave what he had, but his influence waned the further the game went, hence the final scoreline. But it was 4-1, but it's certainly not a disgrace for the Australians. They weren't hammered. It was a strange game because they had their moments, and they, as I say, they took the lead and gave the French an almighty fright,
Yeah, it was a positive start from Australia, and it was almost Ange-like, the goal like that in terms of building it from the back and pressing the ball. It's always going to be tough playing the world champions. I mean, a lot better teams in Australia are capable of losing 4 goals plus to the French national team, and obviously Mbappe, he sort of looked, I know he missed that chance in the first half, but he looked back to his best Giroud tying the record with Terry Henry, like you said, Tony. Griezmann, you know, they've got so much quality. You could sit here all day sort of rhyming it off. So, yeah, I thought Australia done okay, and I thought Aaron Moy did all right. Is it in terms of more World Cup action? Josef Juranovic, he is in action for Croatia right now. It is currently 0-0 in their Group F game with Morocco. So, be interested to see how he gets on. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion about him. So, yeah, that'll be an interesting one. We've also got Aidan Macdonald. Whether or not he starts, we don't know, obviously, but he'll be in action, or he's in the squad anyway for Japan's game later on today in the World Cup. So that's a couple of Celtic players in action in Qatar. How much of the tournament have you seen so far, Tony? I know you've been obviously busy working quite a lot, but have you managed to catch bits out here and there?
The strange thing is that the games are on. You know, you get 4 games a day. The games start at midnight, and it's like midnight, 3 in the morning, 6 in the morning, and then 9 o'clock at night. So it's a real weird one. But I saw the England game. I saw the Tunisia-Denmark game. Tunisia-Denmark finished 0-0.
Yeah,
I saw the Qatar-Ecuador game because that was the opening game. I made sure I watched that. And then I watched the Australia game last night. And then, like Aaron Moy, I faded. I kind of fell asleep near the end, but the game was done and dusted by then. So, yeah, I've been trying to... It becomes like, you know, the game show endurance, try to stay wide awake to watch it. I watched England for the voyeurism factor and to see how they were looking, but again, I didn't think Iran were up to much, so it's not really a gauge, but played as well as it could play last night, you know, so that was that. But, you know, a couple of comments talking about Australia being terrible, and see, I'm not au fait with how Australia have been in the lead up to this game. I thought they gave as good as they could get last night, you know, and Lupi 33 saying he's been watching the Australian team for 35 years and it's the worst he's seen for technical ability, lack of quality and passive tactics. I'm not, as I say, au fait with the Australian national team when he comes back in and he says the worst XG against the World Cup so far, it was twice as bad as Iran. They're awful. I'll take that as local knowledge. You know, Beach Boys saying Australia were honking as bad as Iran and Qatar. The right back looked like a League 2 Scottish player. Moy did what he does best, run sideways and pass the ball sideways. You know, I didn't see that with Aaron Moy. I thought he was, for a spell, he looked quite good. So, but it's all about opinions, isn't it? It's all different, isn't it? So there you go. But if Loopy's got more insider knowledge in terms of how Australia played about to that, you know, 4-1, yeah, it's a bit of doing, but they did have their moments from the game I watched. But then again, I'm watching at 6 o'clock in the morning in the hotel room. I might be, you know, jet lag, tired, or whatever. But it was still an entertaining game, and see, for a spell, they gave as good as they got, and Aaron Moy played quite well for a spell too. So that's the game I watched.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you are playing the world champions, so it's going to be difficult, but I can understand Australian fans that have been quite excited for the World Cup. I've been watching the teams for years. It's never nice seeing your team lose 4-1, no matter who you're playing. Yeah. You covered that, obviously, with Celtic in the Champions League. You can never be too positive about your team getting scalped, so I understand that. Obviously, just more about the World Cup in general, mentioned Maeda, he could potentially be in action for Japan later on. There was some recent quotes that came out from the player himself, just talking about a difficult start he had to the season, really. Obviously, he'd been receiving a wee bit of criticism, despite his goals and assist record still being okay. He missed a couple of chances in the Champions League, as a lot of the players did. But he was probably coming in for I personally think, a wee bit of unfair criticism. But, you know, it is all about opinions. But he's been discussing how Harry Kewell's helped him.
Yep.
And he's mentioned that he's been an important factor in him sort of improving his form and working one-to-one. So some of the quotes from Maeda, he said he's been sharing his experience with me, talking about Harry Kewell, and we've been watching videos together. We've been having sessions together, and it's helped me a lot. During my pro career, indeed my whole time in football, I have never met a coach like Harry. It's thanks to him that I'm really enjoying my football again and also improving my skills. It's down to Harry that I started to change my approach at Celtic and now performing better. He is very good at establishing relationships with players.
Do you know, and we spoke off air and I mentioned I did a piece with Davis Keller-Dunn, who used to play for Ross County, and I've just put the link to it in the comments page. And if you want to read that, Davis Keller-Dunn said exactly what Maeda said there about the 1-to-1 time and how he will improve all the attacking players. There's been an improvement in Jota, there's been an improvement in Kyogo, there's been an improvement in Giakoumakis. Maeda is admitting that he's improved. So I can only put that down to the work that Harry Kewell is doing with the wingers and the forward-thinking players. The people say, these guys, the strikers haven't improved because they're missing chances. But I'm talking about in terms of movement and being there. Okay, strikers miss chances, but there wasn't many better strikers than Harry Kewell out there. Been there, seen it, done it. A master of his craft and somebody who commands respect. And and if you're listening to that, then you are you are taking on board, and you'll these wee tweaks that you'll make to the game. Sean calls them, what's that, the idiosyncrasies and behaviours and all that. So and why wouldn't you listen to somebody like Harry Kewell if you're a forward? And I'm actually quite delighted that Maeda has said that about Harry Kewell, and you can see his influence and that he is having an influence, and Ange is letting him have that influence on that Celtic team. And in times during the season, you could definitely see that, couldn't you? Or I certainly could.
I think there has been a clear sort of improvement in a lot of players, really, since Ange came in firstly, and then again this season, particularly at the start of the year. And whether or not a lot of that in terms of the forwards down at Harry Kewell, we don't know. But obviously, in the case of Maeda, he feels that Harry Kewell's had a big impact, and that's yet another. If that's the case, if he's even doing that for 1-2 players, it's yet another really positive appointment or signing, if you want to call it that, from Postecoglou. Obviously, him and Harry Kewell, was one of the commenters was saying there. I think it was yeah, they'd never worked together before, so that shows you that it's also somebody, given the obvious Australian connection, somebody that the manager was keeping an eye on. So it's good that you've got, it sounds basic, but you've got coaches that can do the one-to-one stuff like that. I think we've heard before that, whether it's Ange himself or Kennedy and Stratton, they're involved in doing the overall training structure, as they have been for a while at the club. So I think having somebody can maybe do, I'm sure they did do one-to-one stuff as well. I'm not saying they didn't, but having maybe somebody with the career that Kewell had, Champions League winner, played at several major tournaments, played in the Premier League for years, really at the highest level for Liverpool and Leeds, etc. It must be good to have somebody like that around.
Of course, right. And Kaiser's comes in and it echoes my thoughts as well. I was just saying that about strikers, that they miss chances, but you wouldn't think there was improvement there. But creating them and the movement, to be in the right position at the right time is fantastic. And I think that too. That's all stemming from Kewell, and how to conduct yourself as a striker, how to shake off markers when lots of teams park the bus, as they say, against Celtic. So it's great that Maeda's actually listening, taking it on board, and saying that Harry Kewell is going out his way to say that to do that with all the players. Because as I say, that the reference to the Davis Keller-Dunn piece, it's deja vu for me, because that's what he said. And as I say, we'll put it in the comments page. We'll maybe put it back up on the website, and you can compare and contrast, or just compare, because it'll be very similar to what Aidan Maeda is saying. Because Keller-Dunn said that Harry Kewell was the best coach he'd worked with in terms of football and knowledge and ability and knowing where to be, knowing what to do, a master of his craft and his position. So when you said that about Maeda, that was my first thought. My first thought was, I recognise that because somebody else spoke it to me and told me that's what would happen. So, and I think it augurs well for Celtic, doesn't it? And Harry's over in Australia working for SBS, which is the Australian channel that covers the World Cup. So Harry will be expanding his knowledge as well, watching players and telling people what he's learned, and maybe even recommending players to Ange Postecoglou as well. So you can never not listen to someone like that, because they've got a wealth of experience, wealth of knowledge, and also being there at the World Cup, he's expanding that, working for Australian TV. So, and they love him over there. They just think he's a total legend. So yeah, that's good news for Celtic, that, to be honest.
It definitely is. It's been a really good appointment from the manager so far, and it seems to be bearing fruit in this individual case. And I seen Harry Kewell was getting some praise as well for his another goal on it.
Yep, looks like another goal for Everton. Yes, 5-1. We're running away with it now.
The toffees are flying. I think in terms of Harry Kewell, he was getting some praise online for his punditry on the
Yeah,
Australian channel, saying he was very analytical and that, among other things. But obviously, just switching gears slightly, you're getting ready to come home now, Tony. It's tomorrow. You bring your tomorrow
tomorrow
your
I,
time.
I leave. Yeah, my
Begin
time.
later on today our time, tomorrow your time. You begin your travels back. So obviously, you've been doing your diaries, and I'm sure you'll have sort of a roundup piece coming at some point. But what's your overall experience? It's been really positive from what
Oh,
we've
it's been
seen. Have you enjoyed it?
fantastic. It's been absolutely fantastic. It's been the experience, a trip of a lifetime, but just in general, the experience, a kind of cultural experience, and just watching Celtic on the other side of the world, and just seeing the joy that it brought to a lot of people. People travel from all corners of the globe to watch Celtic, and people travel from all parts of Australia. People came from Perth, from Brisbane, Western Australia, all sorts of places. But just that feeling, and people talk about it, and it sounds very twee, but it is that family, that Celtic family, and that Celtic connection that just, as I say, that diaspora that's spread eagled all over the world, and you really got a feel for it when you were here, and the unbridled joy that they felt that the team had come all this way to Australia and that they were getting the china. Talking to people and they were saying, I've not been back home in 10, 20, 25 years, stuff like that. And they say just to actually see them in the flesh, it's you have no idea how much that means to them. And it was a strong team that they put out both times. They got to see the likes of Jota, they got to see Giacomakis, Kyogo, and Matt O'Reilly. So they were just delighted at that. And it's and I think I said before, but the good gospel of Celtic's been spread. And I spoke about Bertie Auld being a professional Celtic supporter after he finished playing, and he would just bestow the gift of Celtic to anybody that wanted it. And I kind of saw that in action for myself. That just in general, people were being told about Celtic if you weren't a Celtic supporter or not, and because lots of people were curious. This invasion of the green and white hordes, and it was just it was a joy to watch. It was I feel very humbled and honoured and privileged that I was allowed to do this, and it's something that will live with me forever. I've never travelled as far as this in my life. I got the jet lag to prove it, that kind of stuff, and I, the tales in the diary that I've shared with people. I hope they've enjoyed that. Just give you a wee kind of flavour of the experience, but it's been absolutely sensational, and it's more than lived up to its billing. It's surpassed my expectation, and I can't wait to come from 24, 25 degrees to 3 degrees at Glasgow.
Three
That'll
degrees is generous, Tony, to be honest. I mean,
yeah,
it's been
exactly.
recently, it's been freezing.
So yeah, when you're a tram ride away from the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Opera House and that kind of backdrop, it's we don't have anything like that in East Kilbride to match it, Aidan. Sadly, but hey, all good things come to an end. But it's been, as I say, it's been an honour and a privilege. I just hope people have enjoyed the diaries, have enjoyed what we've written, and enjoyed the TikToks as well. I say you never lose sight of that. Just feet in the ground firmly that you're doing something that a lot of people would love to do. And I always say that I just hope that it comes through in your own passion for what you do in the writing and videos and the podcasts and stuff. It's been one for so much the diary, but one for the memoirs if I ever decide to write them.
No, yeah, it's been great seeing you, Tony, over there. The content's been good. The TikToks have been going down great. So safe travels back. Just before we obviously clock off, which I think we might start to do, 35 minutes we've been going for. Letting you get back to get you starting packing, Tony. Just before we go, obviously, just wanted to point again down to the ticker down low. £1 for 6 months of full access to the website, podcasts, features, tactic pieces, scouting pieces, etc. One of our contributors, Stuart Ross, has just fired up a piece on Mikey Johnson looking at his time in Portugal so far. So, yeah, all there. That's all there for you if you're wanting to. That's your bag in terms of scouting tactics. See how Mikey Johnson's getting on. But just want to say thanks again, Tony, and thanks for all your coverage in
pleasure.
Australia. It's been brilliant.
It's been great. Back to reality soon, Aidan. You know what I mean? With the wardrobe behind me and all that. You know how it is. It's
We've missed
same
a
old,
lot.
same old. But yeah, tremendous. But thank you. Appreciate it.
No worries.